carbon, nickel, copper. These are the nuclei we'll focus on today. And of course they start with elements: hydrogen, helium, and the lighter element number 3, of course carbon, is number 6. So we're almost there. Lithium, number 3. This is lithium 7. And lithium 5 is also has 3 white protons and 2 brown neutrons. Then there's beryllium, number 4. Element number 5, boron, with its very high neutron cross-section. And we have then carbon. Now carbon's different than the other ones. It starts with a cube. So at the center of carbon is a little cube of 4 by 4 little squares here. So it's 2 by 2 by 2. And there's 2 protons in the cube, similar to in chemistry, how there's 2 electrons in the 1s2 orbital or the 2s2 orbital. There's only 2 electrons in the s shell, just like there's only 2 protons up to from carbon up to manganese. So there's the cube in the center there, and it's got 4 extra protons around the sides. So for example, you could just take the cube here and then add 1 more proton to one side, and then that starts to look like this right there for carbon. So carbon's different than the other elements because it doesn't have the 6 faces all covered with protons. So the top face there, you can see, is open. You can see right through it's a big gap between 4 nucleons. Now moving on to nickel. Here is the mock-up for nickel. It's much like iron, and it has 2 rings of protons. There's 1 ring, and it is coaxial with the 2nd ring. So the difference between nickel really and the iron is that the coaxial 2 protons actually have 2 more protons to make it nickel. So this one here is added on, and that makes it ferromagnetic still, even though it's offset a little bit from being perfectly coaxial like iron. Now the thing is that there's different ways this could have lined up. That proton could have gone a little bit leaning left, or it could have, like this, or it could have been placed a little bit to the right. So in other words, there's this big gap. You see that dark spot right in the middle of your screen? There's an extra large gap, kind of like a wind tunnel, going straight into that dark spot there. There's a wind tunnel right into nickel next to the coaxial protons. Now, the thing about this ferromagnetism is that copper then would be non-ferrous. And what happens is copper gets the 1 more proton in white, gets put in there, and it connects up here. Because one of the rules for the pyramidal cube theory is that protons tend to form lines of protons, and they are seeding on the cube. You see, this is the cube right here. That's 1 point on the cube. And then the next one for nickel got seeded on there. And then copper then would have 1 more seeded onto that line. And that causes a short circuit then in the ring. As you can see here, if I can place this in the way, you see it makes a short circuit between that axial proton and the ring. It connects it. So copper then does not have 2 rings that are coaxial. It only has 1 ring. And the other one gets kind of shorted out with that proton. So thank you very much. Goodbye.